Hello, friends. Welcome to My Good Woman, the podcast for new and future female leaders. I'm your host, Nan Andrews, a happily married hockey mom and the founder and CEO of Free Range Thinking Business Strategy Consulting. Grab a seat at the table with me each week for candid conversations with culture-shifting, glass-ceiling-busting, trailblazing women leading impactful enterprises. We discuss what makes them tick, how they get it all done, and actionable strategies to help you lead with confidence and grow the visibility, reach, and revenue of your business. We're classy ladies, but we don't bleep the swear words. Listener discretion is advised. My Good Woman, Ilana Levine, is a Broadway actress and a podcast host best known to musical theater fans for her comedic turn as Lucy Van Pelt in the Broadway revival of You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. In May of 2016, she joined the podcast universe when she began hosting Little Known Facts with Alana LaVine. The podcast has been on the iTunes New and Noteworthy list, and Alana has been listed as one of the most influential Twitter accounts to follow. Real talk, she has a gift for making her podcast guests and listeners feel at home because her conversations are unfiltered, raw, honest, and so freaking funny. And today, the shoe is on the other foot. She's in my digital living room. Lucky me. In this episode, Ilana and I discuss why podcasts are a great way to find and elevate your voice, doing work you love that makes you feel purposeful on the planet, fighting perfectionism, battling the beasts of technology, and giving people space to share their magnificence. She's the host I want to be when I grow up. Enjoy my conversation with Alana LaVine. If the listeners could see my desktop right now, first of all, they would think I was insane. It's sort of like a Sherlock Holmes moment where like the entire wall is pasted with photographs and red string connecting everything.
So you're on Homeland. You are solving...
I'm solving crimes and making podcasts.
Finding terrorists, all of it, as you help people's dreams come true at the same time.
I'm trying. Man, I'm trying. Welcome to the My Good Women podcast. Lovely Miss Alana LaVine. I'm so delighted to have you here. And
I want you to say it in a British accent. I feel like, welcome to My Good Woman.
Welcome to the My Good Woman podcast.
Yes, My Good Woman. How are you today? Yes,
I know exactly. One of my clients, when I was putting this whole thing together and naming it, so I'm sure I'll talk about this in another episode. But the reason it's called My Good Woman is exactly for that crazy British accent reason. My bestie and I always say, "Oh, hello, my good woman. How are you, my good woman?" And I love her. She is brilliant and funny, and she is the wind beneath my wings in getting this started. And so it's both an inside joke, a little bit of a, finger to the establishment, if you will, and a wonderful time to practice my British accent. So
totally.
There you go.
It brings us into the world of the My Fair Lady cast recording. It all works out. It's all happy making.
So to that point, I was thinking about how much we had in common this morning when I was preparing for this. So first of all, we have the lovely Erica in common. And we both are musical theater performers. You in the cast revival of You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown as Lucy. Me as Snoopy in the Fairfield High School summer stock production.
High school, Broadway, it's all the same thing.
And I also love that we have moved on to really interesting, cool chapters and multiple versions of ourselves since those illustrious on-stage times. And that's one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about that I think would be really interesting for women to understand is literally what you're up to these days and the origin story we started talking about. I want you to share that with everybody.
Well, I think, first of all, what's been incredible about podcasting, and I know your listeners are starting or a part of so many different kinds of businesses,
yeah.
But but podcasts seem to be a part of any business anyone's starting anyway, because it's such a great immediate way to get your brand out there, even if the podcast isn't the business in and of itself. Is that it's the most it's like the easiest thing to do, and it actually can be like the only thing you do, or it can be a side hustle for all the other things you do. So the great thing for me about podcasting is I can do it while I'm in a show, or I can keep doing it in between shows. And it's funny because, you know, many people may not know this, but aside from being an extraordinary podcast host, Dawn is like a thought leader. There's nothing sort of, I don't know, prepackaged about what you do. I feel like you find a way to enter each person's creative soul and ambition, you know, dream board, and make it happen. So I just want to start with that. That's why Dawn and I know each other. And when I met Dawn, I had been an actor for decades, literally, and had kids, and was sort of, as someone who had mostly succeeded in the Broadway world, that was a job that didn't allow me to be at home at night ever. And with young kids, and actually now that I look back, it would have been better to stay in the theater when they were young, because nighttime has become so much more interesting now that they're teenagers. Those conversations, you know, I could have played Lego during the day, and, you know, it didn't really matter what time of day I was home, although bed and bath was so important to me at the time. Now I'm seeing with older kids, those hours of the day are really, really incredibly important in terms of like them debriefing on after they're home from school for a while and are ready to talk again. But all that being said, is I was looking for a way to be creative that I could also be home a little bit more. And that is where this podcasting thing came from, taking all of the conversations that I've had with people in dressing rooms for years that really, I don't know, dispelled any mythology about what it is to be a successful artist, and sort of the way it looked in general from like late night talk shows, the glam part of it, and sort of the like real in the trenches day to day of it. And so part of what makes I think my podcast successful is that it opens up to people interested in the arts, either because they want to do it or they just love it, whatever it is. But it also translates into anything you want to do, which is the goal, but how do you stay in there when people say no more than they say yes to you? And that is true for any business that anyone is starting. How do you hold on to yourself, your dream, your certainty that what you have to offer is unique and special, when many people are in your way, or you have to get yeses to get it past your own brain and idea, right? So anyway, I would say that yes, I got to do You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown on Broadway. I got to do a lot of things on Broadway. I got to do a lot of different things in my career. But community has always been front and center for me. And I found that my love of community kept pulling me back to the theater, not just because I loved storytelling, but I love the behind the scenes of that world. And sorry, I'm not crying. It'll sound like I'm choked up. I just have iced coffee stuck halfway between my mouth and my stomach. But I am emotional anyway, because I feel like anything that allows people to connect is something that I love showing up for. And you opened up a door for me to connect nonstop, whether I was on stage or off stage or on a set or not on a set, with really remarkable people.
How many episodes in are you now?
I'm almost at 300 episodes.
I saw that.
And I'm certain
when
it was
you close.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know when this will air, or, you know, the first air date for this, but yeah, and it's almost 6 years to the day that you and I started the conversation about.
That's amazing. What do you hope to leave people with, like to leave your listeners with, as a result of the effort and energy and community and conversation that you're giving them?
That if it's important to you, if you really feel like whatever it is that you want to do, if you believe in it, then figure out how to keep doing it. You know, Edie Falco was an early guest on my podcast. My husband played her husband on Nurse Jackie for a long time. So I am Edie Falco's husband's wife. That is how I'm often introduced in the world, which is and I'll take it because I love her so much, and I'd like to be Edie Falco's husband. She talked about how when she got Sopranos, for her in her life, all she knew is she wanted to act. And if that meant she had to clean houses or work in a restaurant or work in an office, it didn't really matter to her. Her goal was not to become a famous actress or a household name. Her goal was to do this thing she loved, and it didn't really matter whether she got paid for it or not. She would figure out how to pay her bills. And if it meant having a very modest, small life in a tiny apartment somewhere, that was okay for her. It was never about celebrity, fame, stardom. It was about doing the work that she loved. And it made her feel purposeful on the planet to do that. And so the idea that her goodness, right, got matched with her incredible talent, and then the luck of getting cast on this show that became what it became, right? All those things are beyond our control, but that's a perfect example of someone just coming from the purest place and a belief that she had something to offer. Not only did it give her joy, somehow there was the confidence inside her to go, I love doing this and I actually think I'm good at it. And she wasn't afraid to say that she was good at it. Whether accolades, fame, fortune, and more work would come or not was irrelevant for her. That's the great Edie Falco. When you say, what do I want people to come away with? I want people to come away with her integrity and her talent. Their version of that, and trust that it's what I was saying before, trust that if you really believe in it, eventually other people will too.
What's really hopeful to me about that is it gives people, just by presenting your guests, by being able to show them in all of their highs and lows, that you're giving people permission to be their whole selves and bring that to work or bring that to life. And I'm curious, we talked a little bit about women wanting permission, like feeling like, am I qualified to do this? In fact, it's a really unique situation I find in my work. When I talk to men, they will run right at something, qualified or not. They literally could have no exposure to something, and they'll race in like the house is on fire and go for it.
That is not a myth. That is really true. I mean, this is what you do for a living. So yeah. Across the board, it's pretty much true.
And then all the women that I know, and myself included, even with this particular project, I'm behind the scenes working in my little workshop on my own, trying to polish all the rough edges off and make it perfect, and doing so much work before anything actually connects with an audience, with a market, with a potential client or customer. And I just think about how much time is wasted between all that Genesis energy and actually getting something out there. And what do you think for you? Who gave you the permission?
Well, actually, I don't know if you know Dawn Andrews. She did. So just get yourself a Dawn Andrews.
I might know her.
Because I remember you saying to me, it makes so much sense now, understanding what you historically have found in working with people. You gave me a deadline. And you were like, okay, by this date, by May 15th, I want you to have 3 episodes in the can, right? I want you to have recorded 3 episodes. They may not even be episodes you ever use. You were like, don't even worry yet about the finish line. Don't worry about them being perfect. Just start. What I found so helpful about that is I had never podcasted before. It was so random, as someone offered me a podcast and you were like, obviously it was very low risk in that way. And that's very different than when you have raised or are investing a tremendous amount of money in something. So full disclosure, I just want to begin by saying I did not have to get any seed money to start this project.
Yeah.
Totally
Yeah.
unique in that way. But in terms of confidence, embarrassment, all of the things that show up for someone, if they're worried whatever it is not going to be perfect, you released me from that, because it wasn't about what's the perfect finished project. It's let's start. Let's just start.
Has that pulled through, Ilana? Like, as you've continued to grow and continued with this podcast, so many folks do 8 episodes and they're like, oh man, this is a lot. Has that ease and willingness to experiment helped you continue?
Yes, and I will tell you something funny. So I didn't actually at the time, because I didn't even know who my guests would be. I was handed a podcast and it could be about anything. And eventually I came to, okay, sort of they tell writers, new writers write what you know. So I did end up deciding to podcast what I knew, which was artists. And by the way, now it started out as all, famous actors. It has definitely turned into authors and I've opened it up because I wanted to start having other kinds of conversations and about things I knew nothing about. I didn't want to get bored or formulaic in any way.
Lucky us.
Yeah, well, thank you. Lucky me to get to have those conversations. But I did recently air that first ever conversation with a friend of mine who volunteered to be the guinea pig in my first ever. And you know what? I see why I kept going, because although it was a little bit of me finding my way through it, it is a really, really valid conversation. And I think why I was right for this job is I have a genuine curiosity about people.
Yeah.
So did it turn out my first test, guest he was not an artist. And so it didn't actually fit in at the time to the idea of the podcast. But I think if you're generally curious about someone or something, then it's valid and it holds its weight as a conversation. And I listened back to it and I was like, actually, this is really, he's someone who is incredibly successful in the branding world, and had so much to offer that ended up, branding is just how do you package yourself in a way that more people are going to get to know who you are, be it Coca-Cola or a person. Anyway, his name is Eduardo Braniff, and I highly recommend his episode because it ended up being, for me, incredibly useful.
I love it. Where have the challenges been for you as you pursue this?
Technology. Technology. I started a business that is, aside from the joy of the conversation, is all technology. And the thing I hate most in the world is technology. It is not intuitive for me. I feel like, do you know what I feel like? Every time I ask an expert a question about something that I don't understand about the process of getting my podcast out into the world on all the platforms that there's technology involved in that. I feel like I'm literally, this is what I sound like to them. I have an envelope and a stamp. What am I supposed to do? Like, that's how much of an idiot I feel like that is what I am saying to them. It's like, I have a phone with buttons on it. What with numbers? What,
how do these work?
Like, I feel like it's mortifying. But the thing I want to say, to go back to it, is I have always had a sense of humor. It has gotten me through a lot of things. And even as we think about business or like really important things and things people want to put in the world, or products that they really believe are going to save lives if people only had them in their hands, or like whatever it is, of course, when you talk about imposter syndrome, I think for me, having a sense of humor and being able to laugh at myself, it doesn't mean I don't get humiliated or ashamed, as I said, whether it's how do I put this stamp on this envelope. It's not in the doing of the podcast itself ever, because it is not about me in any way. the point of my podcast is to give a platform to people that I am so inspired by, not just
Amen.
because of their craft and their beautiful artistry or whatever it is they do or make, from the widget maker to the author, but it is also, so many of them, it's like their philanthropic, charitable hearts, how they've taken this unbelievable fame and have figured out how to use it to really get a message out about something really good in the world and helpful. So because I am really there to just give them a space to share all that is inspiring about them. So every once in a while I know exactly what I want the follow-up to be, and then my brain freezes for a second, but it doesn't matter. I just ask them something else. It doesn't matter. And then we just circle back. So yeah, I would say there's very little that feels about me. And I think that is the relief of having this other thing in my life aside from acting. Because when I do go in an audition, or when I do go do a show, the review is all about me and my performance, whether I get the job or not. That's the first review. Then there's the New York Times. That's the second review. Then there's my parents in the audience. There's all the ways in my life I do want to please and get a certain, not affirmation, but confirmation that I was the right choice for this thing. But even with that, I always feel like I'm here to be in service of the writer. I have an ego. I get worried that I'm not good enough. But if I just immediately go, wait, why am I here? This writer has spent maybe 10 years working on this thing, maybe more, maybe less. I am here to help them see this through. And so if I keep making it about being of service, whichever lane I'm in on any given day, it takes a lot of the insecurity out of it. And I just spend my life asking questions.
It's such a beautiful thing, Ilana. I hope everybody heard that and is taking it away. Because to me, that's the pathway to effective leadership, the coming in and being of service. I see three big challenges for women when it comes to stepping up to lead, whatever that looks like. And it's imposter syndrome, it's perfectionism, and it's having confidence in your own voice and being willing to speak up. And what you just shared, I feel that's the road to freedom. Because if you make that thing, that product that you're creating, that business you're building, your family, your community group, if you make the outcome of that, the mission of that bigger than yourself, you move all three of those things out of the way, even if it's just temporarily, so that you can actually show up fully and contribute what you can contribute to that situation. I love that you shared that story. It's wonderful. Thank you. So now I am very curious, being anti-technology, like I always want to know how women are making their complicated, complex, busy lives work. Like, are there any, must-haves, must-use, must-tries, things that really make your life move and work more smoothly?
Where one's financial comfort is at any given moment really obviously affects this answer so differently for everybody. Yes. I have a friend who her motto is outsource everything I don't like to do.
Amen. I would love to get to that place. Would love to get to that place. Yeah. Not there.
Obviously that, whatever that means can either mean you need to pay someone to do it. I mean, outsource by its very nature, or understanding of it is, I don't enjoy this, or I'm not good at this, or I don't like to do this. I'm going to pay someone to do it for me. Not everybody can do that. That's a wonderful thing to be able to do.
Yeah.
If you can't outsource the thing in your life that you don't like to do, then it's really figuring out how to make it more fun, right? I mean, it's really that simple. And then part of being a grown-up is some things just aren't fun and some things are hard. And every job, the glamorous actress on a TV show, there's also the, oh my God, I have to stay up all night to learn my lines. They've just sent me 40 more pages. Like there's this stress. And so there, everything has like really hard parts to the job. Or often you get picked up at 4 a.m. That's really hard. Waking up at 4 a.m. is really hard to do all the time. It's hard because it's dark out and we're not farmers by nature and our clock doesn't work that way. And it just means you're going to miss seeing everyone in your life that you love before they start their day. But I do feel like I love the idea of outsourcing. I love the idea, I have found interns to do so many things. Every college has a major or a program geared toward what it is you are making or doing. So, for me and the reach of the podcast, eventually people would contact me and say, I'm a marketing major. Can I help you with social media? Or they're interested in tech. And so they'll help me with that. Or an actor who, loves my guests. And so they will edit because they get to be in a booth or in a green room with people that they admire so much. And it's exciting for them. And maybe I take that for granted and eventually, as the thing has grown, I have paid every intern because I feel like that's been a big thing in our culture. It's one thing if you're getting school credit, which means I'm saving you from having to pay for these credits. So that feels like a fair exchange. But if they're not in a university program where I'm saving them money in terms of paying for credits, then eventually I have figured out a way to pay everyone.
But it's so on brand for you. Like with everything you've shared so far. Here's if I could distill you down to 3 words, which you are far more than that.
I know, but I can't wait to hear.
Love, fun, and community. And the question I asked was, how do you do what you do? How do you get it all done? And those were the 3 pathways. And it all, it shows up in interns or it shows up in pulling in more community. Like, how can I do it? I'm going to find my people.
Yes. And make it fun for them. Even if I can't, give them $1 million for helping me, I do feel like I do try to. And also, you got to care about the people as people who are working with you. I don't care, what the payroll looks like, whether it's super high end or minimum wage, whatever it is. I feel like if people are invested in the dream with you, it's all going to go so much better. And part of that is investing in them and making them feel like, and not in a fake way. I mean, in a real way. There was a woman, I think she was a Harvard Business School professor, but she was talking about sort of keys to success in business. And she was talking about competency and empathy as incredibly important targets to have as a person in the world of business. And the order, it was really interesting. And she gave an example of a couple who are going to buy a car, and the husband said to the wife, "We are not buying a car today. No matter what happens, we are just there to look."
Sounds like me and my husband in a timeshare presentation.
Right? Especially, there's so much anxiety around buying a car. Like these poor car dealerships. I mean, I'm sure they're all really nice people, but immediately you walk in with this feeling of you're trying to rip me off, right? Like you're walking into a situation. Right. So this couple are going in and it's just research. Like that's the point of the day. And as soon as they get there, the salesman says to the husband, "I just want you to know I have an autistic son and I looked you up and I see that you have this foundation that you run and how like this person, this car dealer had taken the time to Google this client coming in because they had to set during COVID, you had to set up an appointment to make sure, you couldn't just walk into the car dealership. So right away, this person had done their research, right? And before even starting to think about selling a car, he found, now this is an incredible common ground, right? I mean, the chances of that, but in the world of Google, there's something you can find out about everyone that is connective tissue between the two of you as human beings, first and foremost. And this is a skill too. You don't want to seem like you're manipulating something. You need to kind of embrace this idea that in a way that feels organic and true.
Yeah.
So this is the empathy part, right? Like once I'm a person, you're a person, once the connection happened between these two people, as humans who care about something, a common thing, then the competency in your job shows up, which is, now I know this person. I'm going to find the kind of car that's right for them. And I am an expert in cars. So there's no phoniness about the business part of this. So that's such a random thing.
It's not, though, because what they've done, first of all, it goes back to your conversation with your interns about treating them as whole, actual three-dimensional human people. But they've also created a space of, I don't want to overstate it, but they've created a space that is slightly more safe for those buyers of the car, because they get that person on the other side of the table has actually taken them into consideration.
And here's a human being with a child with autism, right? Like, he's not the shyster car dealer. Like, he's a human too. So he's aware of what the preconceived idea is of his career choice. Yeah. So he's figured out like how to negotiate that. Anyway, it was so interesting. I'm not in business. I don't know because I was talking to you, I'm suddenly looking at business YouTube clips to kind of understand that world, because most of your listeners aren't going to be actresses doing a podcast, right? They're going to be doing really important things and creating businesses.
This is a very important thing. Ilana, come on now. People have you in their ears, going on their long walks, trying to distress, getting through a pandemic and not able to go anywhere but outside on a walk by themselves, and they get to take you with them. And you're leaving people with love, fun, and community, at least as far as I'm concerned. So we all could certainly use a lot more of that all day, every day.
And roadmaps. I mean, I think what's been interesting in my 300 episodes with really successful people, each of their roadmaps, what gives me inspiration, and it's so heartening, there isn't a one-fits-all formula. And that's right. And so none of these people who we know all of their names, right, in whatever career they chose, they made it. They're in the 1% of, maybe the real takeaway is they were so authentic to themselves. And I know, podcasting was still kind of new when I started. Now everyone has one, but that wasn't the case. My friend Dawn Andrews does, because it's obviously it's working. But, I listened to a couple of people that inspired me. And then I thought, you know what, I'm not the kind of intellectual, I'm not a Terry Gross. We love the same people and have a lot of the same guests, but she comes at it from a very different point of view. We're different ages. We grew up in different places, and she wasn't an artist herself originally. But she's, she has mastered the art of the interview. And then Mark Maron on the WTF podcast. Right. Like, we also share so many of the same guests. He's a stand-up by nature. Yep. Like, so I realized, like, I can't do them. I can't do them. I can just be inspired by them. And I think that's true for all of us. And also, like, not looking right and left all the time, and not following my numbers and going, oh my God, why is this dipping? Why did this episode not get the same numbers and listens as another one? And that stuff can make you crazy too. It's like, just keep moving forward.
It's so true in business as well. Obviously, depending upon the kind of business you have, small, larger, with investors, etc., data can be your friend. It can be the truth. And if your business isn't profitable, then you have to look at why that is. Otherwise, it's really hard to keep a business alive.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I call it zooming in and zooming out, right? You got to be able to, like, zoom in a little bit, look at what those things are, and take away the relevant information. And then you have to zoom out and get back to your vision and your mission for what the company could be, and lead from present into the future, instead of getting too hooked on, here's the numbers that are reporting, because numbers are telling you what happened, like what just happened or what has happened, not what is going to happen. And if you get too stuck on living with what has happened, you're basically living backwards, right? You're
Yeah.
not living towards this vision of the future that you have for what you want to create.
Right.
Actually, there was something that you said earlier that I wanted to go back to about in your car salesman with the buyer story. And one of the things that comes up a lot in my conversations with leaders, and the biggest point of change that somebody can make in up-leveling their leadership is acknowledging how they've been seeing the people that work for them or that are reporting to them. And there's a wonderful book called Leadership and Self-Deception by the Arbinger Institute. And it breaks down that usually the biggest issue in relationship, in leadership, in helping people to move forward and progress is that the person that is responsible for that progression is seeing the person as an object rather than a person. Like a rock that needs to be moved out of their path. My business would be successful if only I could just move these people out of my way. If they could just stop messing everything up, stop making me trip on my walk, then everything would be better. And as soon as a leader can see that there is an actual full human being with an autistic child, with thoughts and feelings, with a whole life that they're living, that can transform a company almost overnight. And I've seen it happen in my work. So I'm glad that you shared that example, because I wanted people to understand that where they might be bumping up against their next step in growing as a leader and growing their business is in the stories that they're telling about the people that are riding along with them to move forward. So thank you for that opportunity, because you triggered that when we were talking about it.
No, I get it. I mean, I think that's why, again, if it's economically feasible, so many young businesses who are more than just one person in the entrepreneur seat go on retreats together or try to find ways to bond together. I mean, there's a whole business and people who go in and lead these things, right? To kind of create a family feeling. And so, and also for a lot of people, I mean, I'm so lucky. I grew up by no means perfect, but a very, loving family situation. And so for me, family does not trigger me. The word family is not, creating family in my workspace. For a lot of people, that's super triggering, right? That is not the goal. To recreate family, but the goal can be to recreate the family you always dreamed of having, right? Like the joy of being an adult is chosen family. And I've realized that what I think of as family can be really not a happy making thing for people I work with. And so sort of trying to even, and that's when the word community came in. And that's why I think I really think about it in that way. In my head, I'm saying family, but that doesn't work for everyone. But community does, right?
Yeah.
And so that's sort of what I think, you're talking about, creating community. I mean, the irony of what you're saying is the idea of someone hiring people and then feeling like those people are getting in their way. But look, that does happen too. Sometimes we hire the wrong people. And as women, to get back to your point, dismissing someone from a position, I mean, I think many women will relate to this, the number of chances we may give somebody because we are aware of their holistic situation and what it will mean to let them go causes us tremendous pain. And it may be that our male counterparts are much more like, you know what, it's business. It's not personal. Everything is personal for us. That's how we're genetically wired. So even the getting them out of the way, because actually they are problematic for the goal. Sometimes that happens too. People aren't, you think it's going to work and it doesn't. Or beyond that, when someone decides they're moving on, like hurt and pain that can come with that.
The devastation. What
did I do wrong? And they're like, no, I just graduated college. And so you're not interning for me now, not because you are unhappy. You graduated, got it. And you got a real job in the field of your dreams.
Okay, good. Whew. All right.
It wasn't me.
I'm going to step away and just breathe in a paper bag and everything's going to be okay.
It's so stupid. But it really does just end up those are 4 a.m. wake ups. Like, what did I do wrong?
Well, so tell me, if I call you a leader, if I say, Alana Levine, you are a leader, how does that sit with you?
I feel like the word, because I always seem to, if I'm embarrassed by a word, not that I should be embarrassed by the word leader, but I always put a word that resonates for me. And I think I am by nature a producer. A producer, as I understand it, in the world of entertainment, is if you're not just the producer because you've given money to the project, is someone who gives people opportunities to be great at what they do. And so I feel like, for me, my goal in every environment that I'm in charge of, both in my family and in my workspace, is to figure out how to give people all they need to be the best at what they do. And so part of that is, if we call that leadership, part of it is like what we were talking about, really getting to know the people, what makes them feel inspired to fulfill their own ambitions. Like, how can I create a space? So I always start with, like, what do you need to do your job? How can I facilitate that? How can I help you do that? And so that's one. I mean, I do think that to me, leadership means being in a place where I can see people's potential and help them unlock it.
So there's a model for leadership that I share with the people that I work with. And it's super simple. It's 3 pieces. It's vision, which we've already talked about a little bit, like having something in mind that you see that you're trying to build or grow, and enrolling other people to be able to stand there and see that with you, even though it doesn't yet fully exist.
Right.
So vision, then alignment, which is what, people, processes, tools, et cetera, do we need to be able to move towards that vision? And then also looking at the resources of that person. What are they interested in? And then the last part is championing execution, which is what you talked about, which is what does this person or this group of people need so that they can do their best work? And how can I facilitate that? What can I move out of their way? How can I protect their time? So in that sense, I would argue that, yes, you are a leader. And the reason I asked the question is because so many women, as soon as I say that, they're like, they'll replace it with another word. They'll be like, oh, well, you can call me an organizer. You can call me a boss. You can call me, a community leader. They will accept. But just a straight up word leader really seems to sit in an odd, it's almost like a pebble in what I would call female leaders' shoes. And I'm wondering what that's about.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny, maybe for me, and this is different for other people, I don't work, most of my life has not been in what is traditionally thought of as business. When you are someone who works in the arts,
who would you say is a leader in the arts?
Right. I mean, I think to your point, everyone is, right? I mean, it just depends. Like if you're so I think of it as, in film and television, it's number 1 on the call sheet, right? The person who has the most lines, the biggest part, probably is getting paid the most, even though they're not the director or not the producer of said film or TV show. Everyone is looking how that person behaves, right? How Edie Falco acts on a set, just to go back to my world. Edie is what we call number 1 on the call sheet. It was called Nurse Jackie. She played Jackie. Yeah. So because she came to work every day, I'm going to have Edie listen to this episode because she's going to be like, oh my God.
So much love coming at her.
Yes, exactly. Alana really loves me.
Well, you are married to her husband.
I am exactly. I'm her husband. That her unbelievable lack of diva-ness, her willingness to stay as late as they needed her and to come in as early as they needed her never having her stand in, be in a scene with another actor, even that other actor having 3 lines. She's never not there on the other side of the camera. So she's a leader of that show, even though she's an actress, because how she behaves, even though she could really do whatever she wants, because they're never going to let her go from Nurse Jackie, no matter what her behavior could have been. She showed like a real team player, she led with that. And so
Mm-hmm.
I guess, to be fair, the word leadership, it's not a word I use very much in my life.
I want all the women using that again. So, here we are in the current circumstances of the world. My personal opinion is that if more women were in leadership, that we would have, I mean, I don't know if we'd have perfect circumstances, but we certainly would have different ones, and I believe different ones to the better. And back to this idea, if you can't see it, you can't build it. So if women can't own the word leader in any arena, so not just in a business arena or a political arena, but if we can't own it in our own, as a leader of our families, as a leader of a community group, as a leader of my, the moms at school with my kids, like if we can't try that on and become comfortable with it, then how do we expect to take the space in these larger, more influential, world shifting places?
I guess it's thinking about, humility comes to mind, right? Like the word humility. And I think there are certain situations where you are asked to be in charge, and therefore you are the leader. I mean, I guess I'm the leader of my podcast. But I guess it goes for me. I don't know if it's so much about, oh, don't give me that title, I'm not deserving. It is for me about, I mean, I really want to think about this, and I will even when we're done with this conversation, because I am very comfortable when I feel knowledgeable, competent. I've done my research to take ownership of whatever I'm doing and ask for help when there are parts of it that don't make sense to me, like the stamp on the envelope. How do you do that, right?
Yeah.
But I feel like for me in community, I want everyone to feel that they have leadership over whatever part of the process they are in charge of or they are spearheading. And so I guess in if we get into the minutia of it, I think there is probably something for me to look at about my knee-jerk reaction to switch out another word for it. Absolutely. But I feel like for me, it's about partnership is the most successful way to make anything. As you know, Snoopy,
Yes.
Everything for me is about being an ensemble. And as an ensemble member, it means everyone feels like they are a leader in their domain. Now, obviously, if you are a solo business owner and you run your business by yourself and you don't have a staff, you're leading yourself in a way. But yeah, I think leadership, I guess it just means with confidence and empathy, doing what you do, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it means in whatever arena, as a parent, as a partner, as a daughter, as a business person, as an artistic person, all of it. And yeah, I guess maybe for me, that was why the word leadership felt like the boss. And I think those constructs make for workplaces where not everyone feels like what they have is equal to someone else. And so for me, the goal is less, leadership in terms of like helping, sure. But I'm always looking for how can everyone feel like the boss? How can everyone feel like the leader? And that might not be realistic, which is why I'm not in business. Maybe it doesn't work that way for reals. But like the big office and then everyone else in cubicles, like that's what I see in my mind.
Oh my God, so leaders are the used car salesmen. They're the used car salesmen.
No, I don't mean that. I don't mean they're not, that their reputation precedes them as not being honest, because that is how car salesmen were seen, as trying to rip you off. But now we have CarMax and Carvana, and you don't have to worry about that. You just choose it and they send it to you. But yes, this idea of what I do is more important than what you do. I hate that. Across the board, I hate that.
I don't know if this word exists, and it's going to be super cheesy, but I'm going to blast it out anyway. I feel like we need to start using the word uniquequal. And why I'm saying that is in leadership styles that work well, and in successful leaders, I don't feel like it's I'm more important than you. I may be responsible for things that you are not yet responsible for because I
Mhm.
have a skill set or an understanding or training or education that puts me in a place where I understand that unique set of concerns.
Yeah,
But what we're talking about is the rest of the team being unequal. They
I
are
love it.
in their equality, unique in their contribution.
Yes, I think that's beautiful. And I see a hashtag, I see t-shirts, I see a lot.
Unique. Well, there it is. I knew I was going to come up with a shirt line by the end of this conversation.
It's so good. How are you spelling it?
Let's see. UNIQUEQUAL. Right?
Uniquel.
Uniquel. Right? Did I get that? I don't know.
It
We might have
can,
to
or
work that out.
unique well, either
Unique.
one.
Well,
But
ooh,
they're both really
yes.
good. I'm
All
in.
right.
I'm in. That's our next venture.
You were here for it. You were here for it. Okay, so this is my closing question, and then we have to know where to connect and where to find all of you and all your things. Imagine yourself in Times Square. All of the sparkle, glitz, big, crazy loud billboards, and the biggest, loudest, sparkliest billboard. You get to put your message to the past, present, and future female leaders of the world, something that you want to share. What would be on the billboard?
Believe.
Tell me more. What's behind the believe?
That we have every right to have our voices heard, our ideas shared. We deserve respect. I think it's about that. It's like it is so worthy. It's so worthy, and there's so much messaging about how to package that, right? What it has to look like, because it's coming from a woman. How to not come off as too aggressive or somehow impact this delicate male ego. Ways to kind of put it out there that's just lovely all the time. And by the way, I believe in lovely. I
Girl,
really
me
do.
too.
There's nothing wrong with it, but that doesn't have to come at the cost of ownership of the thing. And I look at a lot of Sarah Jessica Parker. I see these women in my life who have so many businesses going on. Sarah has a scent called Lovely, right? I mean,
yes.
that's
yes.
that's how.
It was like she literally bottled it. She bottled it.
She
put it in
bottled
a bottle.
Lovely, and she is. But she is also, and I've seen her. I've seen her manage so many different situations with fans who say all I want is this, but then they want more and more and more. How do you be gracious, and nothing she does can happen without all of the fandom that surrounds her work, but also having boundaries, like absolutely thank you. I have given you what you've asked for, but also I am an autonomous person with a family,
Yes.
and I have to cross the street now. And she does it with an elegance, but an earned sense of boundaries, right? Having boundaries at the same time. So that's Sarah. That's a sidebar. But I do think there's this way in which you just have to believe that you are just as worthy for the place at whatever table you want to sit at. And of course, and it sounds so obvious, and I can't believe in 2022, and podcasts live forever. And so I hope in 50 years, when somebody finds this episode, they won't know what we are talking about.
They're like,
right?
Man, that's an old conversation.
Yes.
Are they doing the Charleston over there?
Yes,
What's happening?
Way we watch shows and we go, oh my God, that woman literally put on a full face of makeup before her husband woke up, so he thinks that's what she looks like, right?
Yep.
We look at that and go, that's bananas.
Yep.
But that's what I hope this seems like in the future. Like, what's the distinction between how a lady would do it versus how we are in the world of they. We are getting closer and closer
Yes.
to a time where your pronoun does not determine how you have to behave in the world or
the limits of your accomplishment and everything else. Yes.
When everyone is they, and it's controversial for some and a no-brainer for others, and learning a new language is difficult, but we can all do it. There's a Rosetta Stone for all of this. We will learn it. That if we just start, we're all just people doing the best we can with humility and ambition. And once we get to that, everything else, that's to me what the billboard will
That's what
like.
Believe is.
Yeah.
Excellent. I can't wait to see that in real life. I would like to see that.
Okay, well, I will meet you in Times Square.
It's a date. It's a date.
Thank you.
Where can everybody find, where can they find Little Known Facts? Where can they find you? I'm deep up in your Instagram. So
I love
where can they find you?
They can find me. I'm at home in Brooklyn. Just come by.
Hi.
So Little Known Facts podcast. I am most active, and all of the information about things that are happening that are pertinent are on Instagram at Little Known Facts podcast. And that's also true on Facebook, although I live there much less. But that's where you can find me. And the podcast itself is literally any platform on the planet that has podcasts. Just look for Little Known Facts with Alana LaVine, and I can't wait to be in your ears.
Yay! Thank you so much for being here with me today, and for celebrating your almost 6 years and 300 episodes as I launch my very first.
It couldn't be more meta and more full circle. And I just want to say thank you publicly to you, because you're a life changer. And just the most good person. And I love you, Dawn Andrews, and thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything.
Thank you back, Alana Levine. I love you too, and I'm about to be verklempt, so we'll cut it off here.
Goodbye. Go.
Bye. Thank you for joining us this week. To view the complete show notes and all the links mentioned in today's episode, visit mygoodwoman.com. Before you go, make sure you follow or subscribe to the podcast so you can receive fresh episodes when they drop. And if you're enjoying My Good Woman, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Reviews are one of the major ways that Apple ranks their podcasts, so even though it only takes a few seconds, it really does make a difference. This episode was produced by me, Brian Marcus, and Kathleen O'Shaughnessy. Thank you again for joining me, Dawn Andrews, in this episode of My Good Woman. I'll see you next time.